Hello, people. We are live. Welcome to the Fair One podcast for this live review of the fights on the weekend, namely the Gastelum and Cannonier fight. We will be talking, not limited to that, though. We'll be talking about any and all fights that occurred on that particular day. Um, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on what you think. Put it in the comments, and we'll have a chat about it. Let me know what you think about the the fight itself. Do you think it was the right decision? Do you think it was a close fight? Do you think it wasn't? Retrospectively, I thought it was a close fight. There were a couple of times in that fight I thought Cannonier was going to run away with it. There were a few times where I thought Gastelum was kind of clawing his way in it, back into it. Gastelum did a good job of coming forward in that, but I feel that he was always ahead. Cannonier was kind of like always just a little bit ahead. It wasn't much in it, but it was always a little bit ahead. Pip Dennison, the first comment on this, says, "Good afternoon, Hefe. I hope everyone is well." Yes, me too, people. Me too. Yeah, I just felt that Cannonier was just a little bit ahead, technically in that. Like it looked like I said, whilst the thing was live, Gastelum is very good at what he does. He does what he does really, really well, but he's relying a lot on that 1-2 on that left hand straight down the pipe. He's got a few kicks in there with his body type. You don't really expect them. He's got some good wrestling in there as well, and his grappling's pretty good. But he was catching a lot of people off with the fact that he could get inside and throw that left hand, like he skips outside of your lead foot and throws that left hand down the pipe, and he was catching people with it. Um, but at that top end, everyone's watching you, and if you're not continually adding wrinkles to your game, it becomes really difficult because everyone's watching you, everyone's working you out, everyone's figuring ways to beat you, and there's so much more. There's so much more footage of you out there as well. There's so much more footage of you facing different kinds of people, and there's more chance of you facing someone similar to the guy you're going to face. There's more chance of you having faced someone like that before. So you really have to add more wrinkles to your game. And Gastelum, I feel he's always close, a bee's dick away from doing quite well in some of those fights. I think even the Israel fight, I feel that he had some really good moments in that fight. But when you watch it retrospectively, like he had some good moments. My opinion in this. When I watched it live, I felt it was close going into the fifth. I was like, this is a close fight. And yeah, it probably was 2 rounds apiece, but it wasn't like it wasn't to me when you watch it back and you see like he had good moments in those fights, but Israel definitely led the dance in that fight. When you watch it back, not live, when you watch it live, yeah, 2 rounds apiece, and you're like, okay, this is, da 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 da. But when you watch it, like looking back at it, Israel led the dance and came very close to finishing him in the fifth. Um, yeah, I feel that people are starting to not get caught out by Gastelum as much. Like people understand that he's going to skip outside of that lead foot, throw that left hand down the middle, and that's his game. That's what he tries to do, and he darts in and throws that left hand. And if he catches you, he catches you, and if he hits you, he hits hard. And he's got a real good killer instinct to finish fights. So that's Gastelum, and I don't think that he made the changes that he needed to make to to be able to compete at that at with the top guys consistently. That's my opinion. I think he can beat anyone at all if he catches them. Of course he can, but I think it's going to be hard. Like he's now 1-5 or 1-4 or something like that. It's not reflective on his talents. He is very talented. He is very good. Um, but there's a difference now when you have to. It's not even your game plan because a lot of people have been blaming the coach and that and Cordero and that, but it you can only game plan around the skills that your guy has. You know what I mean? Like you can't you can't ask Jacare to go in and do spinning heel kicks. It's not going to happen. Like He's not Wonder Boy, you know. So you have to plan around the skills and the attributes that your athlete has. And so if 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 Gastelum's not going away from just doing that, basically that game of his, which is the jab, little bit of a check hook to corral people in and throw that left hand, it's kind of like you still got to be very good to beat him. Don't get me wrong; he hasn't lost to scrubs, but that's the game. That's kind of what's gonna happen. Cannonier, on the other hand, he looked like he'd actually broken Gastelum down, and that he has a few more tools in his toolbox. So then he can go and change things around to exploit, you know, tendencies that Gastelum or anybody else would have. He can do that. He's quite versatile. Um, I wasn't surprised at the shape he came in, to be honest. Like, he always comes in good shape. He is a diesel engine. Gets more dangerous as the fight goes on. He was I like the way that he was like switching stances and kicking the legs of Gastelum. But one of the things I liked the most was how he was sliding in and out of range of that left hand of Gastelum's, and also switching stances and fighting out of the southpaw stance and catching Gastelum on the way in with catching Gastelum as he was switching stances. He'd switch stances and hit Gastelum with either like a check hook or a jab, or kind of like a jab hook thing that he was throwing. Oh, he dropped Gastelum with that. Um, he's got a fantastic chin. You know what I mean? Gastelum has an amazing, amazing chin, but you have to think like it's gone past the point of it being a good thing. I think with him, it's in the sense that it's he's shown to have a good chin too many times. You know, like I think he's taking too many shots in that by some big guys. So he's showing off a fantastic chin and a crazy amount of heart, but he is getting hit. He is getting found. You know, the chin of his is getting found a fair bit, and it's only going to be a matter of time until somebody starts to crack it. Um, I was impressed by. I thought Gastelum early or Cannonier late, and it was like that. It was Cannonier late. That's what I said prior to that, to the fight. I thought that Gastelum was a little quicker in those first two rounds, but then as the fight progressed and Cannonier started to feel more comfortable and whatnot, Gastelum was slowing down, and he didn't have the zap behind his punches at all later in the fight. Um, Yeah, I was very so I was impressed with that. I don't know what happens next for each one of those guys. Um, Gastelum's record isn't the best at the moment. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means, you don't. Does he get cut? Does he look like he will get cut? He's still a very, very good fighter. He would be a great addition to any other organization, and he's a big name. Like, he's a big enough name to carry. So I don't know that they'll cut him, but he's lost quite a few fights now. It's like he's 1-5 or something like that, or 1-4. So yeah, the other interesting one that I found was the Mark Madsen fight. Um, Simply because Mark Madsen has done well. But he's 36 years old. He did well against Clay Guida. Um, but I don't know where he goes from here. I don't know what happens with him. I don't know if you go and like, can he beat the top dogs in that division? I really don't know. I think that there are some real killers in that division, and I don't know where he sits in that lightweight division. I don't know. Um, and after that performance with Clay Guida's a veteran, and he's a tough fight for people, but he did win. I felt he won that fight. I felt that he won it not easily, but convincingly. I thought that he won it pretty clearly, um, and he won it off the back of a jab that he was landing, and he did a good job to land that jab. But as a Greco-Roman wrestler, we didn't get to see him show that skill set, and his boxing, whilst he was landing the jab and he was looking good, I don't know. I don't know where he sits in the upper echelons of that division. Like if he can fight, some of those guys in the top 10, because lightweight of all divisions, the top 10 in lightweight are pretty good. You know what I mean? They're good. There are other divisions that you're like, yeah, da da da. You have a Madsen kind of character in some of the other divisions, and he'll probably still do really really well. But in the lightweight division, it's a little bit harder, man. In the lightweight division, there's so many good fighters, and there's so many good fighters that are at the top of their game. That they're at the peak of their game. Like I don't know. You know, I don't know. I don't know what happens with someone like that. I and that's mainly the the two fights that I was talking about. Um, I mean, from the weekend, I'm not going to talk about too many other ones, but I will be talking about the fight that's coming up, which is Chikadze versus Barboza. I'm very very interested in that fight. I think that's going to be an absolute barn burner again. And another one to watch is the Kevin Lee versus Daniel Rodriguez fight. That'll be an interesting fight. Kevin Lee's going up to the welterweight division. He's fought at welterweight a number of times, but I'm interested to see how that one goes. I don't know. With Edson Barboza and Giga, I don't know, man. Justin Vishega says, got to be up soon for work, but couldn't sleep. Saw you on. Much love for the show. Thank you, Justin. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you for posting. I appreciate it. Yeah, man. I don't know, man. Because one of the things that I've noticed, like Barboza's got really really good stand up, right? He's a really good stand up. He hits real hard, but his boxing, when people can box back, he kind of goes into a shell. His hands don't have the same. He's not. He's similar to Jose Aldo, but he's not. He doesn't have the same boxing ability. He doesn't have the same kind of comfort in the pocket. If you let him kick at range with you, he's a dangerous man. But Giga is a guy that can kick at range with you, so that's going to be a very interesting fight. Sage says, "Sup, Fab? Good to see you. Good to see you, sir." And JLA says, "G'day, Fab. Good day, people. We're just talking about the fights. Please let me know what you thought of the weekend's fight. Let me know what you think of the fights that are coming up. Let me know what you thought about any of the stuff that happened on the weekend, and we can have a good conversation about it." The other fight that's a very interesting one is Mahmoud Muradov, the Uzbek fighter, fighting against Gerald Meerschaert. That's going to be an indication of, I think, more where Mahmoud's at. I think he's a very good fighter as well. In that middleweight division. So there's a few fights there that for me I'm interested in from how could I say it here? I want to see where Kevin Lee's at welterweight, and I want to see where Mahmoud is at in a middleweight. To me, they're interesting fights. They're not fights. I'm not going to lie. They're not fights that are going to make me jump out of bed and double fist pump into eternity. But I am interested to see how those fights go. I'm interested to see how Mahmoud does. I think he does have a lot of potential. He is a little bit kind of, in my opinion, he hasn't really settled down a little bit with his striking and that. I think he's got the potential once he kind of settles in a little bit more. I still find that he's looking for the knockout a lot. Gerald has very good jiu-jitsu. He does have good jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying it's the best jiu-jitsu in the world. I'm not saying he's Jacare, but he does have good jiu-jitsu, and he can make things difficult for people. Mahmoud's a very, very highly touted fighter. He's very, very talented guy. Nicholas Bright says, "Hi, Fab. Good evening to you. Just joining in." Good evening to you, man, and thank you for joining us. Jay says, "What could Cannonier do to Adesanya besides getting a KO?" I think like I said before, the only two people I see giving each other a run there in that middleweight division is Rob to Adesanya and Adesanya to Rob. I don't really see the others giving them a run. To be honest with you, that's no disrespect. I see Cannonier as like a kind of slower version of Rob, you know, and I see Gastelum as a kind of smaller version of Rob. So having said that, that doesn't mean that Cannonier can't go out and do some damage. He can. But if you take Rob's speed off him, it's like, it's like saying a shorter version of Adesanya. Like that's their thing. That's the thing that makes him special is like Adesanya's vision and his ability to use his length, etc., etc., etc. And with Rob, it's his ability to cover that distance from A to B. It doesn't mean that you can't be beat. Both guys have been beat before, but these are their weapons. And I think Cannonier is Rob without that explosiveness, without that A to B. Everything else, he's fantastic. He's fast enough. He knows how to fight. He understands how to fight. He understands angles. He's got a great chin. He's very durable. But I see Israel being able to pick Cannonier apart. I don't see Cannonier being able to get in and out in enough time to be able to beat someone like Adesanya. Could he catch Adesanya? Of course he could catch Adesanya, but I'd have to heavily favor Adesanya in that fight. Nicholas Bride says, no idea what sort of dirt Sam Alvey has on Dana. He's 0 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw in his last 6, and he's still on the roster. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I know that he always brings it, but I've seen guys that do better get cut for less. You know what I mean? Having said that, I think that the middleweight division for a long time hasn't had that kind of a lot of fresh blood, coming through. That's why they did the Ultimate Fighter with the middleweight season, and that I think there is a big need of good middleweights. So I think in the next couple of years you'll probably see a few middleweights have to go, and a few will go up. And I don't know what they're paying him either, because there's funny things like you might get a fighter that he'll get cut, right? But he's at the top of like in the upper echelons. But you look at him and you're like, all right, well, that guy's getting paid X amount. He's however old, and he's not going to fight for the belt again, and he's not going to, So from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense to keep paying that guy that money. Kind of like the Romero thing. I don't know, because I'm not privy to the contracts or the breakdowns of what went on in the back room with Romero. But I'm also saying to you, like, I don't think that Sam Alvey's on that kind of money at all. So, and he might have just gone, "Yep, I'll fight." Well, who knows? They're the things that sometimes happen. Um, Justin says, "Poor Roosevelt Roberts this weekend. Never seen someone get bitch slap KO with the toes. Got the Nate Diaz Stockton toe slap. I've seen people get hit with the toes, man, and get knocked out. Because it depends where you get hit, dude. You get hit right on the chin. It doesn't matter how you get hit. You're going down. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm very interested in Mahmoud's fight, to be honest with you. Wellington Turman. Who did I see him fight last? The Bruno Silva fight. Yeah. So that fight between Sam Alvey and Wellington Turman, if Wellington Turman loses that fight, he will be cut, I think. That's two on the trot for him. He's not without talent, but I don't think he uses some of the strategies correctly. In the last fight against Bruno Silva, I felt like he wasn't strategically, he wasn't using the best forms of attack or defense for that matter. Um, the I'm not going to make the whole show about him, but for those that don't know, so Mahmoud, he's got, I don't know how many wins in a row, a whole bunch of wins in a row. He's won his last 3 fights in the UFC. I don't see him necessarily being a force in that division, in the middleweight division. I I think there's some really good fighters in the upper echelons of that division. But he does have a good background. He does have a good striking background, and he has had a lot of fights in MMA. He's with them. He comes highly touted, etc., etc. I don't know. That's why I want to see how he does. I want to see how he does with someone a little bit higher up the food chain, like Gerald, who's he's been around. He's had a lot of experience. He's got a win over Kevin Holland, I believe. So it should be interesting. I don't know. I don't know enough about Mahmoud. I was following him before. I was watching him. I know that he's with Mayweather and all of that. There's a couple of good fights there, a couple of interesting ones. I know that as a kickboxer as well, he's had. So I'm just going to look it up now, just to make sure I give people um, the right numbers. Yeah, so he's only had a few kickboxing fights, kind of thing, but he's a good striker. I just know the level that there is out there in that division at the top end. Like when I see some of those guys come through, I don't see anyone that's going to give Israel or Rob a run. Honestly, that's just me, and that's just me being objective and me being respectful and not saying anything disrespectful or bad about those guys. I just don't see anyone. I haven't seen anyone come through that I can go, okay, this guy's gonna, you know, I don't see him. I don't. The way they move. I'm not even just talking about their skill set. I'm talking about the way they move, the way they can control distance. I don't see anyone that can that's really going to break that code on either one of those two guys. Um, or any guy that's an amazing grappler that's really going to be able to do something like that to my. I just can't see it. Jacob Birdsong says, really not excited for the Overeem fight, and I'm basically expecting him to get slept by Rico. I'm going to try and do a fight companion for that fight. Overeem's been on the show. I hope Overeem wins. But Rico Verhoeven's another animal, dude. He's at the top of his game right now. I think he would beat any version of Overeem in kickboxing, and I think that Overeem's had, his best days are kind of behind him in that regard. But Overeem's very talented, very smart. He knows how to fight. Uh, but Verhoeven, man, this is his time right now, and like he looks really good, man. He looks like a dangerous man, man. So I'd have to put the money on Verhoeven. Nicholas Bright says, not terribly excited for the next couple of weeks of fights till Volkanovski and Ortega. Man, I'm telling you, like I said before, like some of the cards that the UFC does, like if it wasn't the UFC, you probably wouldn't watch it. Like you probably wouldn't really. Um, it'd be nothing. Hold on a sec. But they do such a fantastic job. So I'm not knocking the UFC. They do such a fantastic job, like such a fantastic job of promotion and marketing that it doesn't matter. It would not matter who fought. They would watch it. Like I said before, that time when McKee fought Pitbull and they were fighting for a title. Good fight too, man. Good featherweights. Like you put those guys in the UFC division and they'll do well. And they had I think it was the same. It was Strickland and Hall, and over like 900,000 views on that UFC card, and Bellator had something like 90,000 views, something like that. It was crazy. It was like 10 times more views, more maybe. And you think like, man, that was one division, one promotions had, really, really decent guys fighting for a title. It was a big promotion. And the UFC had guys that, I love Strickland and Hall. Like I love them, but they're not fighting for a belt, and they got 10 times the views. So the cards might not be that good, but people are going to watch him. People are going to watch him. They do such an amazing job at promoting that it honestly wouldn't matter who fought, because people aren't watching anymore. They're for the fighters. They're watching for the event because they do such a fantastic job of promoting and then running the event. Um, so let me see. Nicholas Bright says, when's Overeem fighting? October 23rd. Justin says, you're right about that. I don't know what you wrote. Rofan Stotts ask you about someone outside the UFC who's pretty good. Justin, can you write that again, man? I don't understand what you wrote. Nicholas Bright says the upcoming Smith versus Spann comes to mind. Yeah, there's just like a whole bunch of fights, like even this card that's coming up. Realistically, you take Edson out of it, you take Giga out of it, and I mean, yeah, Kevin Lee, but the rest of the guys like Mahmoud and Gerald, yep, you know them. But the rest of the guys, like, I know who they are because I watch every weekend. I watch all the fights. But the rest of the guys, like, people don't know who they are. Like, unless you're a hardcore fan or something like that, you wouldn't know who these guys are. Jacob Birdsong says, literally was about to type that, mate. Yeah, it's like it's incredible. You know what I mean? It really is. I don't, and I'm not. When I say this, man, I'm not bagging him. I'm just saying it is what it is. Like you don't know who some of these people are, but the UFC still manages to sell it, and they do they do it. Ryan Spann, in fairness, like he's not a bad fighter, but again, I don't know enough, and I watch a lot of fights, dude. I watch a lot of fights. He's a good fighter, but you, no, like people don't know, like to headline that card. People don't know him like that, Good for him. I'm fucking happy for him. Don't get me wrong. But the UFC is such a massive ability to do that. Paul versus Woodley. You ask what happened there. What do you mean? What happened there? Like had they make that fight, or what happened there? As in, have they fought? What do you mean? Can somebody tell me what they think is next for Cannonier? Because to me, I don't know how like if he let's say he had one more fight, right? Let's say he like he if he won one more fight, he would have to fight Rob or Israel, whichever one he beats. I mean, whichever one wins, he'd have to fight them. And I don't see him. Yeah, I don't know. Justin says you were right about the fighter. Ralph Stotts said he was pretty good. I'm sure that the guy you mentioned, when asked about a good fighter outside the UFC, you could see making champion run. Oh, okay. Now I get okay. Zemuk says, what do you think about Woodley versus Paul and what's going to happen in it, Fab? I think Paul's going to beat him. I think Paul's going to box him up pretty good. Like one, because Paul can box. He can box. I'm not saying he like if he was actually fighting boxers in the top 10 or something like that, it's a different story. But Woodley was never a boxer in the UFC. He was never. He was a guy that hit super hard, and he could hit hard. If it was an MMA match, him versus Paul, Woodley would smash him. But it's not MMA. And what people don't get, that volume of punching that boxers have, like to do that for 8, 9, 10 rounds, however many rounds they're fighting for, it's different. It's a different kind of animal, and you don't have something else to go to. The thing with Woodley is that he could always like kind of go back into the cage. That's what he'd always do. He'd kind of go back into the cage and then be able to throw that overhand right as he blitzes in. And he always had that wrestling. So the level change would always make you kind of be wary of his level change and then understand that, that right hand's going to come. So you had to kind of pick your poison. And he was setting up that right hand. He had a good left hand as well. And on the ground, on top, he was good, man. At his best, he was good. He could hurt you. He dropped a lot of good guys with that big right hand. But in boxing, it's very, very different. You can't really fight like that. You have to fight volume. And if you're not used to fighting like that, it's very, very, very difficult, man. Plus, the the length, man, is a huge thing in a striking only sport. I I I think it's very, very hard for him to beat Paul. Um, Con says shout out to Fab from Den Haag. I hope I said it right, the name of the place. JLA says Cannonier versus the winner of Brunson versus Till. Cannonier versus the winner of Brunson versus Till. Where does Paulo Costa sit in this? I'm just curious. And who do you have in that fight? Who do you have in that fight versus Till and Brunson? Justin says, sorry, watching you with one eye, other eye in my pillow, half asleep. In Cali over here. Man, I appreciate you watching, my friend. Thank you so much for watching. Um, Jacob Birdsong says the UFC must have a really strong conviction that promoting the brand is much more important than shaping huge stars. For a savvy company, the fact that we don't see the champions on late night shows. I think that's how it makes sense in a way. I'm not saying that this is what I'm condoning or this is what I think, but I'm saying it makes sense because uh, from their perspective, the brand will always be there. So no one is bigger than the brand. If if you promoted the fighters start to become bigger than the brand, and they're going to ask for more money. They're going to need more money. Blah 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 blah. So promoting the brand means that no fighter is bigger than the UFC. And so when if a fighter wants to leave or whatever, he can leave. But like, where's he going to go fight? You know what I mean? He can try and make his own promotion. He can try and do all that stuff, but it's not really economically viable because the UFC brand is so big. Like, if I said to you, like name the Bellator champions, I would struggle to name them all, and I watch all the fights. You know what I mean? But I would struggle to name them all because I'd have to be like, do they have? Is he still the champion in that division? Blah blah blah. Like, I have to look it up. The UFC puts it in your face. They go, this is the champion, the best fighter ever. And then next month when he loses, it's a new guy that's the best fighter of all time because it's like the UFC brand. Con says, what are your thoughts on Fury Wilder 3 Fab? Another annoying delay to an underwhelming rematch. Will we ever see heavyweight unification in boxing? Man, I don't know if that's the first one. Just talking about the fight itself, Fury versus Wilder. I, I think Fury is very hard to beat, man. I think he's very technical, hits hard enough. He's not like a big power puncher in like a massive power puncher like a Wilder person, but his footwork and his movement is so good. Wilder has to catch him to beat him. Wilder has to really catch him to beat him. And Fury can stop him. He can. And his footwork and his movement is very, very good. So I've got Fury in that one. Jacob Birdsong says has to be a reason, though it is pathetic. Oh, that's going back to the other thing that we are saying. Yeah, well, that's the reason. Like, if you make the show about the fighters, then you're promoting the fighters. I'm not saying this is right. I'm just saying to you what it is. Where in reality, Dana White is way bigger than everyone not named Connor, maybe, you know what I mean? But even then, even with Connor, like, Dana White's still like, for every fight, he's still the centerpiece of everything. So yeah, he's as big as any of the fighters, maybe not Connor. And he's the one that is the face of the UFC and blah blah blah. So no fighter is bigger than the UFC, which from a business perspective is smart. Nicholas Bright says, I hope the UFC starts distancing themselves from McGregor, to be honest. poor dude seems to be losing it. I don't follow a lot of the stuff that happens in the background. I'm not going to talk about Conor at all because I don't know. But I do see it. I've seen it. I've been around elite sport my whole life, so I see it all the time though. Like, and it's not just elite sport. It's like you see it in humans all the time. Like, what you can do, like really, really, really stupid things, but whilst you have the momentum on your side, by momentum I mean you're either making money for a bunch of people, you're really good looking, maybe you're a really good looking girl or whatever. People give you passes, man. People give you passes, and it's the same like a magnitude and essence of the thing. It's the same whether it's happening in the playground or it's happening, like in a sports star. While it suits other people, they'll give you a pass, man. When your looks are gone or when you're not making the money anymore, whatever, that's when you always hear back like, oh, um, you hear athletes talk or whatever, and they say, people used me, and then when I couldn't do it anymore, no one was around me. I was, no one was there for me, and blah blah blah. And that happens. That's those what they say is that people that don't read history are deemed to repeat it, and it happens all the time. Conor McGregor's not a first to do that or to go through what is going to be coming for him at some point. And probably he's going through a lot of stuff right now, just because people think just because you have money that cures everything. And I don't know anyone with Conor McGregor money, but I do know people that have a lot of money, like not Conor McGregor money, but a lot of money for normal people. And I know a lot of them that aren't happy at all. They're not happy, they're not fulfilled, and they do all sorts of stupid shit that I don't understand why they do it. But yeah, man, it's sad, but it's not new, man. Jay Olay says Till and Cannonier have not fought Adesanya. Costa will take a couple of fights to get back. I'm not sure if Till can stop the grappling of Brunson, but if he can, he should outstrike Brunson. I think he'll stop the grappling of Brunson. I do think that. I don't think Brunson will be able to outgrapple Till for 3-5 rounds or whatever it is. And striking wise, Till's a fair bit better, like a fair bit better than Brunson. Beetlejuice says, "Hey Fabski, how are you feeling after the jab the other day? You didn't sound too well. Hope all is good, man. Honestly, still today, I get bad head spins. I don't have the incessant headache. I don't have fevers anymore. But me personally, other people, nothing's happened to them. But I'm still like, I still have head spins. Like every now and then, I get real bad head spins, and I have I'm very, very tired. I'm still tired. So yeah, it smashed me. Justin says, what singer or band you always wanted to see live? You can even include new artists as well if there's someone new that catches your eye. You know what, man? I haven't. I'm not really a massive musical fan, but there's a whole bunch of people that I would in theory like to see live. But I am the type of person that going to see them live is a bit of a schlep. Like it's a bit of a pain in the ass to do it, navigating the crowds and all of that. But there are a few like I would have always liked to see Carlos Santana live. That's one that I like. Jacob Birdsong says, laugh out loud at DC trying to keep a straight face for Dana as Cannonier rightly complains about his pay. I like I heard about that happening. Um, the problem with that, dude, with someone like Cannonier, and he's right. Um, and I was listening to Jack Slack. I listened to Jack Slack today, and he's right on point with what he was saying. Um, Apparently, the UFC. This is from Jack Slack podcast. Listen to him, very knowledgeable guy. Love listening to him. I don't get to listen to him too much, um, for two reasons. One, I don't listen to a lot of MMA podcasts. Number one is I don't have time. Number two is a lot of the times I don't want to inadvertently be talking and sounding like somebody else. You know what I mean? So that's a lot of the times why I don't. Because if I'm actually pretty good at retaining knowledge. Like I never really took notes, and I know that if I listen to him too much, I'll just come out here and talk like him, not his accent, but yeah, I'll say the things that he says if I agree with him. But basically, the UFC was making like $10 million. He's making $10 million per card uh, from ESPN, and they got like a 5 year deal for like 30 fights or something like that, and you think like that, like the fighters should be getting 50% of that. Like if you look at NBA and NFL and all of that, and that would be $5 million in pay per for that ESPN card. And there's no way it wouldn't have got to 1.5, maybe. So the UFC fighters, they're on like 15% of no, they're on 13, 14% of revenue instead of like 50% like some of the others. And that's on the ESPN thing. Then you got tickets, then you got a pay-per-view for the pay-per-view ones, plus the sponsors that are all over the place. So fighters are getting not very much out of it. The only thing I will say is that Cannonier can say what he wants to say, but like it's really pissing in the wind because like we were saying earlier, like the way that it's being marketed and the way that it's being done is like nobody would care. I would because I like Cannonier and I love watching him fight, but nobody would care if he got cut. No, like nobody, because the UFC will just keep going. Not just Cannonier, like just about anyone, they wouldn't care if they got cut. Like the UFC is such a big thing, and all the other fighters will fight for if there'll be a whole bunch of guys that will fight for half the money that Cannonier is getting paid, and the UFC will market them, as the best fighters in the world. So it's just it's a little bit sad, like that happens, and that the guy's saying, "Look, I'm not getting paid enough," and I agree that he's not getting paid enough. None of them are, but I'm through. I think I'll say this: I think that the fighters should get paid, but I'm through making a massive thing about it because I think teachers, nurses, end of life companions, those people should get paid a hell of a lot more too. So I'm not going to sit here and cry and cry and cry about it. I also think like a lot of the fighters, how it's done. Like I think I was again from the Jack Slack podcast. He was saying Misha Tate was saying most of her money is gone from fighting, like blah blah blah. But I also don't understand some of the fighters, the way that they structure their training and that. Like if you're flying all over the US, you're having to do all your camps overseas or whatever. It's kind of strange to me as well, because honestly, you don't need to do that, man. You really don't. But you have to put in some time to structure a good team at home, and you'll be able to find those people. You don't have to go and train like with a in fashion team at the moment. You do not have to do that. Wherever you are, if you live in a major city, trust me, there's some really, really, really good coaches around. There are some fantastic coaches. You just have to kind of believe in yourself and understand that you don't have to fly all over the world. There are some really, really great coaches in your hometown. If you live in a big city, for sure, guaranteed. If you live in Sydney, and like, say, for example, 3, 4 years ago, nobody knew who city kickboxing was. I knew, like, I mean, the people around here knew, and people in kickboxing world knew, but they didn't know. So people would have thought, oh, you can't train in Auckland. It's bullshit. Of course you can. Of course you can. And they wouldn't be the only people in Auckland that can train. Do you get what I mean? Um, in Sydney, there's plenty of places you can train. In Melbourne, there's plenty of places you can train. So there are places you can train. If you then spend your time amongst 2 camps, 3 camps, and you're having to pay all of those people, paying all the shit that you're paying, traveling, accommodation, all that, you're making this whole thing a lot harder than what you need it to be. That is 1000% the truth. Um, it really isn't that difficult, It's not that hard, but it is. You do have to believe in yourself a little bit. Jacob Bertog says, "How did you change? How did you choose to name the fair one? By the way, look, the fair one when you have a fair fight." Zemuk says, "Connor's just a shell of himself. It's like he's trying to mimic his old self, but can't pull it off without going past boundaries. Completely different person, I see." Um, I don't know that I see that, man, because like I said earlier, like if he was doing that, what he was doing now, and he won, everyone would be like cool with what he did. You know what I mean? It wouldn't matter if he had said whatever he said about someone's wife, but he won. If he had caught Dustin, on the chin and dropped him and won, everything would be cool. Everything, nobody would be saying anything about him. And he could be everything exactly the same, but he just caught him on the chin, you know? N says, at least when you are hungry, it keeps you busy. Yes, it does. Zed says, was it Pfizer you got, Fabi? Yes, it was, sir. Yes, it was. And don't get me wrong, I definitely think that when he was coming up the featherweight division, Connor at featherweight, coming through the featherweight ranks was fantastic, you know, but he was fighting all the time. And the thing, even when he fought Eddie Alvarez at lightweight, it wasn't Connor's fault, but Eddie was like a really good matchup for Connor. You know what I mean? Like not that Eddie's not good, not that Connor meant it, but that's like the the that's the great matchup for Connor if you want, you know what I mean? Um, and yeah, like I didn't see him fight like through the lightweight division thereafter. And good for him, man. He made all the money he did, and Eddie Alvarez made money, and blah 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 blah, and everything was good. So I'm happy for all of that. Herbertal before says, "Hey Chem, quick BJJ question: would you advise on doing back strengthening work, deadlifts, etc., to prevent injuries in BJJ, or are you sweet just to roll? Thanks." If you we spoke about this during the fights and that. If you look at all the guys that do BJJ, they're all fucking yoked, dude. They're all yoked. You look at Bushesha, look at Gordon Ryan, look at Andre Galval, look at Gary Tonin, look at I don't know, Kit Dale, Craig Jones, Jacare, Marcelo Garcia, Leo Vieira, all those guys, they're all fucking jacked. Look at Ricardo Arona. I can go on and on and on and on. And Pajares. So understand this. I love jiu-jitsu. It's a great sport to do, but it is no different to any other sport. Like the whole thing where, they go like, jiu-jitsu is all about technique, and the technique and the leverage will beat blah 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 blah. It's not about strength. All sports are the same, dude. All sports are the same. Otherwise, all the NBA players would look like fucking bodybuilders, but it's not, because shooting a basketball is about strength. Is not about strength. It's about technique and blah 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 blah. But the stronger you are, the better your application of the technique is going to be, and the better your technique is, the better your application of that strength is going to be. So jiu-jitsu is no different, dude. If your technique is exactly the same, but you're weak as piss, and the other guy is same technique as you, but he's 10 times stronger, he's going to gorilla fuck you. He's going to destroy you, and you're not going to do anything. That is 1,000%, 100% down the barrel. The problem is that you're seeing that a lot before, when there'd be a massive discrepancy, like with a little guy that's really, really, really good against guys, that in the heavier divisions that weren't as technical as him, and he was able to win. But as the sport progresses, you won't see, like, you could see that in any sport, but the other sports have been like, how can I say, they'd already evolved past that. If you got Oscar De La Hoya and he fought a 90-kilo guy that was an okay boxer, like a good boxer, but okay, not great, Oscar De La Hoya would have punched the shit out of the guy. But it's different. You know what I mean? Like, the boxing's so developed that 3 or 4 kilos is a big difference in boxing. So, why do I say that? To answer all your question is yes. One, lift if you're gonna do jiu-jitsu. Stretch if you're gonna do jiu-jitsu. Stretch if you're gonna do, again, lift and stretch if you're gonna do any sports, and even if you weren't gonna do any sports. I would suggest you do yoga, and yeah, you're 100%. You do some lifting for sure. Some people can get away with it. Some people, I know a couple of guys in my life, like a couple that are super gifted guys, and they don't lift at all, and they never lifted in their life. And yeah, fuck those guys. You know what I mean? Like, those guys that are super gifted like that, never get injured. Yeah, great. If you're one of those people and you're super strong as well, great, good for you. Most people need to lift, especially as they start to get older, especially for lower back, shoulders, knees, major joints of your body. Make sure that those big muscles around those joints and the small muscles around those joints are keeping you together. Yes, lift. You don't necessarily have to go balls out and lift like a maniac, but lifting is important. Yeah, 100%. N says, I was hoping the Novavax would be here by now. Jacob Birdsong says, Jack Slack is excellent. He is. He really is. Nicholas Bright says, Jack Slack has a typical English ranting way of talking. Always like hearing his takes on things, especially when he goes off on one championship. Yeah, the anonymity is cool because he can just say whatever about whoever. Lord Slug says, should Kelvin drop a bit of that excess and go back to welterweight? Now, he is at welterweight now. I think you mean lightweight. I can't remember how bad his cuts used to be, but I do know he's never shredded. He's a big guy, dude. I've seen that guy in real life a few times, and he's a big dude. Like, he's a big dude, like very broad, very, very thick guy. And he is lean, dude. He's fucking lean, like lean at lightweight, lean at welterweight. I don't know. I don't know. Because not the thing is not just that. Not everyone, like some people's bones are thick and dense, you know what I mean? Like some people have, like I've got like little bird bones, you know, like I've got little bird bones. But some dudes have just got like thick wrists, big hands, big heads, you know. That's why when people look at Gastelum and they go, oh, he's welterweight, he should fight a welterweight, he's undisciplined, they just give him shit over and over and over and over again. Like, I don't know, dude, but I'll tell you, I've met Gastelum, and like I've said to you before, like he looks like a heavyweight. When you see him in real life, it looks like a heavyweight, but somebody cut it off at the elbows and knees. His head is fucking huge, man. His torso is huge. And I don't know how thick his bones are. You know what I mean? I don't know how much he weighs. I don't know all of that stuff. So I can't speak on should he go back to lightweight or not or whatever. I'm sure if he could, he would. And it's not just can you go back there. Maybe he can, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe if he wants to fight, say 3-4 times in a year, he might know that he can fight a welterweight a couple of times and fight at lightweight once or twice. So he doesn't have to go through those big cuts 4 or 5 times a year. Because that's what kills you. It's not can you make the weight. It's can you make the weight in a healthy fashion. Can you make the weight over and over again? You know, that they're the big things. Not can you make the weight. Of course, I'm sure he can make lightweight. I'm sure that Gastelum, if he really wanted to, probably could make welterweight. But it's it might not be good for his body. I'm almost sure it wouldn't be good for his body. He's not little, dude. Beetlejuice says, I miss the days when Shane Warne was always on the news for his shenanigans. N says, at Beetlejuice, Oz Cricket all went downhill when they dobbed on Roy for bringing his fishing boat. I don't know anything about cricket, man. Justin says, come on, mate. You give me politician answers every time I ask questions outside fighting questions. If I ask you your favorite candy, you say, well, all candy's great. Each has their individual unique quality that blah, blah, blah. What was the question you asked me, Vishegas? Oh, I just gave you the. I try and give. I thought I answered you. I said I'll go watch Carlos Santana. Jacob Birdsong says, it is truly maddening that if the fighters just began a union, they would improve almost every aspect of their mistreatment. I think you have to understand who you're dealing with here. I don't think they're going to form a union at all. You know, I don't think they're going to form a union. One, because it's the UFC, and two, because just by their nature, I just don't think they will. You know what I mean? I just don't think the UFC fighters will form a union. Randy says, yo, love the show. And Joel Forbes gives a very enthusiastic thumb up. And then Derek says, any advice for the friends and loved ones of people pursuing MMA as a career? I find it hard to be fully supportive, even though I love the sport. It's just so brutal economically and physically. I don't know how close you are to the person. I don't know. And this is one of my answers, Justin, that's going to destroy you. I don't know how close you are to the person. I don't know how good the person is, and I don't know what your knowledge is of MMA. Because here's a reality. There are people that have pursued MMA or other sports, and they're close to me. But I know sport. You know, I know sport. I know how good the person can be. So once I know those things, I can say to a person, I can be honest and say to him, listen, dude, like, this is not for you, man. This is not for you. You're just going to get your head busted in. You know, this isn't for you. Oh, but I love doing it and blah, blah, blah. That's cool, man. But like it isn't for you. Like if if I love big wave surfing, and if anyone that's seen me surf will attest to this, if I said to people I love big wave surfing and I'm gonna surf pipeline and my friends let me, they're not supportive. They're just fuckwits. They're not supporting you. They're just letting I'm gonna get killed. And if your friend is not good enough to go the whole way, and they're fighting in local shows and get knocked out in one fight, go to war with another guy 3 weeks later, then get submitted by some other dude after getting ground and pounded, and then wins a fight against us. That guy's not like, and he's 28 years old and he's got two kids at home and it's struggling through that. This is real. This happens all the time. That guy shouldn't be fighting anymore, dude. That guy should just get a job. And if he really loves martial arts, just go teach jujitsu or wrestling or boxing or whatever at a gym and coach people or whatever, because you're going to get hurt. So is it hard to be supportive? It's just being honest, man, and just understanding what that person's ability is. Because the other thing is, if a person is gifted, and I've seen this too, I've seen people that are gifted and they just haven't had the right training behind them. They haven't had the right people push them. They haven't had the right opportunities, etc. But you can tell that the person's gifted and they have that ability. Then yeah, get behind them, man. Help them get the people around them that they need. Um, but being honest and being able to ascertain the reality of what that person's skill level is. If I said to someone right now, I'm going to sell everything I own, and I'm going to, like I said, surf pipeline. It's ridiculous, man. It's not about supporting me. It's just being stupid. If I love surfing that much, the correct answer is that's cool, Fab. In between jobs and when you have some time, take your surfboard out and we'll go and surf all the breaks you like up and down the south coast of Australia. That's up and down the east coast of Australia. We'll have a great time. We'll get a van and we'll go up and down and do it. But you selling up and trying to make the pro tour is not going to happen, my friend. It's just not. The selling up part will, the making the pro tour won't. Martovi, you monster, out of nowhere, came in swinging, trying to end the fight like vintage Gomi. Thank you very much. JLA says, Kevin is at middleweight, same as Whitaker. Used to be welterweight where he fought Woodley. Yes, sir. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. For sure, Rob will never make welterweight again. Herbert before says, do you reckon we'll see a 3-weight division champ in the next 5 years? Possibly, because not at the same time, not as simultaneously, but people that have won belts in 3 divisions, yeah. Like say now, because you don't have to fight your way through. Like say for example, if you've got enough following, you'll get the fights. Like Conor now, if Conor really wanted the Usman fight, he will get the Usman fight. And let's say he plants one right on Usman's chin, he could be a 3-weight champion. If he had to fight a couple of ways, I don't see Conor being able to fight his way through the murderer's row of welterweights. I don't. But anyone can beat anyone on a given night, and if he gets a title shot, he could. He's always got that chance of landing that shot. So because the fight, the UFC is like that, it's massively like based off your following. I'm not complaining. It is what it is. Because it is like that, then yeah, you could have someone like that. Israel could have, maybe say he beat Jan and he really wanted the heavyweight shot. They'd give it to him. He'd get a heavyweight shot for sure. I'm not saying he'd beat Francis, but I'm saying to you, like he would get the heavyweight shot. Django Bango says, just saying hi and thanks for everything, Fab. 1 a.m. here in California. I'm hitting the hay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, man. Got that late BJJ class in Oz. Thank you, sir. Con says AJ McKee to be the first 3 division champ, 145, 155, and 170. Maybe. I think if we're talking about MMA, what's his name? Oh my god, Martin Nguyen almost became three division champion. Robbie McKenzie says, getting older now, Fab. Is it bad form to start a roll on your knees, or is this frowned upon? Most places they do start the rolls on the knees. One guy pulls guard usually, so you know, and if you're getting older, dude, and you're not there to compete, like you're there just to have a role, like people go play tennis, you just tell the young dudes, man, this is how we're rolling, and that's that. Rob McKenzie said, also, Homeless in America says, if Rob was still a welterweight, how do you think he would do against Usman? He, he it's he wouldn't be a welterweight. You know what I mean? Like, um, and he's a different fighter at middleweight than he is to welterweight because he grew into that body, and so he fights a little bit different. You know, he's got a lot more power at middleweight than he did at welterweight. So that changes the dynamics of it. So, and he wasn't who he is today when he was at welterweight just by process of evolution. So I can't say that. I mean, if they fought today at middleweight, I think Rob beats him and beats him pretty bad. Um, Martovi says, I think Conor versus Wonder Boy would be an entertaining striking match. That would be interesting. And the thing with that is Wonder Boy's not that big. He's actually not that big. He's not little. He's not like a little welterweight, but he's not a massive welterweight. Um, Martovi says, if only there were exhibition fights. A lot of them kind of are. Justin says, I thought Pitbull could be 3 division champ, but that shit hit the fan. Yes, it did. Homeless in America says Usman is bigger than Rob, though. He's not bigger than Rob. I've seen them both like right next to each other. He's not bigger than Rob. Not even close to bigger than Rob. It's not even not is he's not bigger than Rob. He's Usman's real muscular, man. He's a big welterweight, but if he went up to middleweight, he'd be a middleweight. He wouldn't be like a big giant guy. He's not like when you see like if you see him sitting down next to Israel and that, you go, oh, yeah, he's big because he's a big guy, he's broad. But if you see Volkanovski sitting down next to someone, and he's a featherweight, you go, fuck, that guy's massive. But then, like how long Israel is and the levers on Israel, he's a big guy. Rob is big as well, dude. Like different build to Usman. Rob's got like big legs, big bum, big thick neck, big skull, man, and he's a different build. Like Usman's, they're just different build, man. It's a completely different build. Usman's perfect for welterweight, the same way as like Khabib, perfect for lightweight. He's the biggest guy there, big dude. But at welterweight, Khabib wouldn't be the biggest welterweight, and then that's where I'm not saying he can't beat everyone at welterweight. He might be able to, but he loses a massive mechanical advantage that he has at lightweight, which is he's bigger than everyone at lightweight. At at middleweight, someone like Usman is not. He wouldn't be the biggest middleweight, not even close. Um, it says Usman walks around at 210 pounds, which would be if he does, number one is doesn't matter what you walk around at. Like walking around weight's different, to think different people can walk around at different weights, but that still wouldn't make him bigger than Rob if he walks around at 210 pounds. Um, and it's not your what weight you are, it's your frame. Your frame is what makes a difference in what weight you're going to fight at. That's why someone like Israel might walk around at 91, 92 kilograms. And that's people say he's not that big. But dude, when you see Israel, he's 6'4" and he weighs that, right? 91, 92, 93 kilos that he walks around at. And he's skin and bone and muscle. He's lean at 91, 92 kilos, 6'4", big frame, big fucking hands, you know, different. It's not just the weight. Don't get caught up in what people weigh. Because if you wanted to, like, if Rob wanted to, he could weigh 110 kilograms, but these guys have to stay. Like, Rob will stay at a certain weight, like he could go much heavier than that. Nicholas Bright says Max Holloway is taller than DC. Size can be deceiving. Yeah, he is taller, but DC looks like a bear, dude. If you see DC in real life, I've met Cormier in real life. I've seen him like a bunch of times, and that dude's a bear. He looks like he looks like he'd crush you, dude. The height is one thing. Yeah, it's not just the weight. My Toby says bone density is a whole bunch of stuff. But the size of your bones, the size of your head. Usman's 37 years old. Maybe he'll go up, but I don't think so. I think, and he's not a particularly fast welterweight either. Do you get what I mean? He's not a particularly fast welterweight. So the way that he fights and his skill set and his size is perfect for him to fight at welterweight. Nicholas Bright says, I'm agreeing with you, Fab. No, I know you are. Like, I know you are. Zed says, I completely forgot Rob used to be on the podcast. You've probably been asked stupid amounts of times. I apologize, but where has the biracial angel been? Man, we stopped working together now. It's close to like 2 years ago, man. So he's just been doing his thing. I've been doing mine. Justin says, what most intriguing fight coming this week into you on the UFC card? For me, like I said, probably the most intriguing fight that's coming up is the Mahmoud versus Gerald fight. That's the one I'm actually interested in seeing because um, I think that's the one that I want to see where he's at, the Mahmoud fight. But yeah, that's probably the most intriguing fight for me. Barboza versus Chikadze is also interesting as well. But definitely Mahmoud Muradov versus Gerald Meerschaert. I have my eyes on. Um, Homeless in America says Khabib would get beat at 170. That's why he almost died fighting at 155. I don't know that he'd get beat. I can't say that, but I am saying to you he would lose a lot of that mechanical advantage. Homeless in America says, how many times has he been hospitalized for weight cuts? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, it definitely would fit him better for him to be fighting at lightweight. Otherwise, he'd fight at welterweight. But I don't know. I don't think he'd be as effective necessarily. Doesn't mean he wouldn't win. Just I don't think he'd be as effective. I think the Kevin Lee versus Rodriguez fight is going to be a very interesting fight as well. Um, I want to see. I like seeing Kevin Lee fight. I really like the style of fighter that Kevin Lee is. Nicholas Bright says, almost forgot Dan Hooker versus Mini Kelvin Gastelum got announced. That should be a great fight. Betting the house on Hooker. I would also bet the house on Hooker. I think um, I don't see too many people beating Dan Hooker at the moment. To be fair, um, I mean, I just want to look something up just so I don't say the wrong thing here. But yeah, I don't see too many people getting the better of Dan Hooker. I mean, I don't even know that. Yeah, like he yeah, I don't know. Homeless in America says too many wrestlers at 170, 155 is all strikers. That's right now. You know what I mean? Like a few of the guys that he fought before were decent wrestlers too. It's not. It's it's more the way that he matches up with in that division. The one that he had a lot of problems with was Gleason Tabau, because he's a huge man that is now fighting welterweight. It was actually just in a very close decision beat Rory McDonald now recently at the PFL. So yeah, no, just interesting things. So yeah. But anyways, guys, why don't you watch on the weekend with me? Sorry, Martovi says Justin says Chikadze, I think, beats Barboza. If Barboza uses his legs more, no one better. But sometimes I think he leaves them out of his game plan and gets his ass beat. It's going to be interesting to see because in this situation, he's fighting a guy that can kick with a kicker and arguably might be a better kicker than him. Might not be as flashy kicker, but might be a better kicker than him. I don't know. My Toby says, it was good to be part of the stream. Sucks that I work on the weekends and miss the fights. We'll do our best, man. Just put some headphones on while you're working, my Toby. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. We will try and do a preview on Friday night, and then we'll watch the fight on the weekend. So thank you so much, guys. Please join me here if you haven't already. Please hit the like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. So thank you so much, guys. Take care. Thank you very much.